Hi, everybody. It's Richard from the Homeschool Freedom Club, and I am doing another one in the series of talking to mums and how they home educate and also earn at the same time. So today I've got Kylie Hanna with me today. Welcome, Kylie. Thanks for joining me.
Hello, thank you, thank you. Thanks for having me. Pleasure.
Oh, no, you're very welcome. It's lovely to have you here. And can you just give us a little bit of a background about yourself?
Yeah, so I have my biggest part of my background, I guess, is I come from corporate, so I've just left a 22-year corporate career. And I built up over the years to work as a project manager in the railway infrastructure sector. So I was delivering new stations and less sexy bits like car parks and bridges over the railway. And doing that pretty much full time plus studying for degrees and different qualifications up until the point that I did become a mom. And as we talked about just briefly before we came on here, like the when I became a mom, I saw such a change in my own values
Yeah,
around why am I paying thousands of pounds to somebody else to look after my child when I want to be at home with them? I'm going to go and earn that, but then it just straight away just seemed totally misaligned. But I could see that that's how society was set up. That's what the expectation was. If you've got a career, you've got a house, you've got a mortgage, you've got cars, we had all of that. We accumulated all the stuff. And actually, when I got pregnant, we'd only just moved into our house, which had tripled our mortgage. So the pressure was really on. Um, so I was working full time up to the point of having my baby and worked right up until day dot,
yeah,
maybe 3 days, 4 days before she came. And then I just knew that I couldn't go back full time.
yeah,
Luckily, one of our family members or one of my husband's family members stepped forward and said, I'm not Ofsted registered. I'm not, she didn't drive at the time, but she said, I would love to have Harper. And so after 5 months, 3 months statutory pay, 2 months off with no pay, feeling the pressure, then went back to work 3 days a week. And I did that for 19 months before then I had a second baby. Again, had a bit of maternity leave, went back
yeah,
and just found that flow of 3 days a week in just okay, not ideal, but okay. And felt, assured that the kids were with somebody that we knew,
yeah,
albeit, not Ofsted, not following a curriculum. And at that point, I was very much like, they should be in Montessori, they should be properly they should have a curriculum, they should be following something because that
yeah.
was my education
Of
paradigm
course, yeah,
at the time. And it was really during lockdown that I think everything, to be honest, a lot of things changed. So my marriage broke down when we separated and we sold the family home 3 days before lockdown was announced. So that was the first thing. We were all thrust into this situation where actually working from home was a have to do, whether we like to or not, whether it works or not. I mean, some people, if it literally didn't work, got put on furlough, but that wasn't the case for me because I could
yeah,
manage the different projects I was working on. Site activity really did drop, so some of the workload did drop as well.
yeah,
But it was great weather. We were all working from home. We're in this kind of apocalyptic situation. And it was actually a great time for me. I know that that's probably awful to say to some because they had a terrible, tragic time. But yeah, I got much more used to working from home in that time
yeah,
and more available for my kids, not having this rush in the morning and not having the rush to go and get them and then feed them and put them to bed and knowing that we're doing the same thing again tomorrow. So I think that's what started the wheels in motion for me to let go of being somewhere else. I was already kind of halfway there anyway.
yeah.
But then actually I'd already been building a network marketing business a few
Okay.
years before lockdown happened. So I kind of already so when I got pregnant and when I had the baby and when I was faced with that decision of childcare, thousands of pounds, or stay at home with my baby and yes, be a little bit less well off, but
Yeah,
then I was like, actually, network marketing, I can do this from home. I can work around the kids. So we've already been building it, but I think honestly, for me, I had not my idea of personal development, let's, be blunt, was going on a safety course at work or
yeah,
doing a degree that was relevant to my work. So I did a construction management and economics degree, which of course now I don't use at all. I'm in a totally different field now. So when I went into network marketing, I had a lot of growth to do.
yeah,
And I think I'll be honest, I played at the personal development side
Yeah.
of network marketing. So my business peaked and troughed and peaked and troughed for a long time. Um, and I think if I'd joined it now, when I've done a lot of that work, obviously it's all ongoing and I'm, by nowhere near a finished product, but
Yeah.
it'd be quite different. Or if I just went in and committed to the personal development side.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'd be quite different. But so I was leading that business up until lockdown, and then there were just things about it that just felt so misaligned. And I've been doing a lot of work actually during 2020. I've when my marriage broke down, I went full on into personal development, full on into healing, and I mean like shadow work, inner child healing to try and understand why the dynamics. My marriage became really toxic, and I actually had PTS, complex PTSD from like flashbacks from childhood because I actually grew up in a domestic abuse setting, and it had become quite familiar, some of the dynamics, some of the behaviors. And so I was like, right, I can't let this happen and let this transfer ultimately to my kids, because I said I'd never allow those behaviors, and look where I ended up. I was very conscious of like my decisions, and I would not be in that situation. I wouldn't allow someone to treat me like that. But actually,
Yeah.
inner child wounds triggering each other and all of these different things going on, it became extremely toxic and in the end quite dangerous. So there was no option but to separate. But what that did do is it catapulted me into this healing journey,
Yeah.
which then, as a byproduct, almost like showed me all of the areas of my life that weren't aligned, and
Yeah.
that particular business wasn't aligned.
Right.
Um,
So important.
yeah, it's so important. And I think so many of us do things because we think we should. And
Yeah.
that was my career.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's a job that's societally acceptable? Obviously, this isn't conscious thinking. This was like
Yeah.
my conscious mind was, it looks interesting, it's diverse, it pays well, I've got a ladder I can climb up. I know ultimately if I just keep working, I'll get remunerated well.
Yeah.
Um, you don't think about family at the start of your career, do you? You don't think
No.
about wanting to, you don't know generally about the schooling system and what you might be putting your kids into.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
you might hope to privately educate them, but even that is still part of the system, just my
Yeah.
view. I
I
know there
totally
are,
agree.
yeah, I know that there are some really great private schools that,
Yeah.
are child-led, that are more holistic, that are not part of the system as such.
Yeah.
System, you know how to explain it, without really enforced like projecting my own opinions. Um, but yeah, so that business kind of came to a fold, and I just was like 100% focused on my own healing journey. And then through that, I became more qualified in all the different modalities. So I became
Right.
an advanced theta healing practitioner. I became an angelic Reiki master, a Usui Reiki practitioner. I learned EFT, became a meditation teacher.
Yeah.
I'm feminine energetics guide, a transformational life coach, and all these different things. And it literally was at the start, the catalyst was, I need to heal me because of that generational pattern that I'd already seen transfer to me, not
Yeah.
want to transfer that to my girls. I have two girls. So
Very powerful motive, isn't it, for transformation when you got kids? I mean,
yeah.
I went through a similar thing, and I had depression around the birth of all three of my children. And it was after the third one, it was like, I've got to sort this out. I really don't. I mean, I haven't had any more children, but there were the patterns there that I just needed, like you, I needed to get rid of. I needed to find out where they came from and to
Yeah.
heal them. And it's, yeah, I mean, the work never stops, really, does it? It just, you're constantly sort of looking inward and trying to see where the shadows are and sort of trying to bring that stuff out. And it's a really can be a really painful journey at times as well. Um, but I mean, you're right as well in that lockdown, it did. I mean, for us, like you, I know for a lot of people, again, it wasn't a great time, but for us, it was fantastic. You know, we were all at home. My business had folded, which meant I was there with the kids and what have you, and which, on one side it wasn't ideal, but it led me down a whole different path as well. And actually, for me, lockdown was a massive blessing. It really was, that everything around that, and it was, it sort of woke me up to what was going on in the world as well,
Yeah.
and it woke me up to the school system and what it was about, and
Yeah.
it really did a lot of good. in a lot of senses. It was kind of the sort of like someone to take me by the sort of lapels and give me a good shake, you know,
Yeah.
and it was amazing. But I mean, so what I'm really interested in, because you've sort of built a business over the last few years, because your kids are quite young, aren't they? They're 6 and 4, I think.
6 and 7.
6 and 7, sorry,
Yeah,
six
yeah,
and seven.
6 and 7. Yeah.
So yeah, so you've sort of done that with two young children at home as a single mum. You also had you were working 3 days a week as well. And I used to be involved with civil engineering. I used to work at the Institution of Civil Engineers many years ago. So I have some idea of what goes into these projects, and they are pretty demanding, even if you say just car parks and bridges, but a bridge is a
Yeah.
complex thing.
Yeah, I mean, if you get the dimensions wrong of a bridge, you're pretty
Yeah.
like, yeah, I mean, even at the trial erection point, you're pretty screwed if anything's wrong. So yeah, it can be quite demanding. There's a lot of stakeholder engagement, a lot of coordination of different disciplines, and I
Yeah.
had to be on, and actually, when I started to feel less aligned to that work as well,
Yeah.
it takes a lot of energy from our field, from our bodies to
Yeah.
live in a way that isn't aligned, that isn't
Yeah.
authentic to us. And that's what I found. I was just on this constant, like, oh, just getting burnt out. And it felt really, just to be really honest, like, because I dub myself, because I don't like the name coach or healer, because I'm just a guide. I facilitate, and I witness any healing that happens. I'm not doing it. So I call myself the self-love alchemist, right? But in these, in those moments where all those months, because it took a year to 18 months to get all the qualifications, then start, to not to I was embodying it for a couple of years, but then to start doing one-to-one sessions with people, and then
Yeah.
realize I'm not taking people on enough of a journey. So then building out a group program that I could really take people, like, this is your start point, this is going to be a transformation.
Yeah.
Great, but building the tech, building the actual beta round, leading people through it as I was building it, working my job, home educating, I
Yeah.
felt really burnt out. So here I am, the self-love alchemist, not looking after myself, not loving myself. And it was
Yeah.
like the biggest fraud ever. I also had an end goal in mind, but yeah, it has come with its very mixed emotions for sure, and its challenges.
And I mean that must have been quite a balancing act, because you're working 3 days a week, so you're not seeing your kids then. Then you're trying to build out a business when they're at home as well. And I mean, I know now you've sort of now you're fully focused on that, but it must have been quite a difficult balancing act trying to pull all those strands together.
Yeah, to be honest, they've always been at home with me since pretty much since lockdown, to be honest. So my eldest, who's now 7, she's 8 this year, she was meant to go into we actually joined her with registered her with a primary school nearby, a nice one by all
Yeah.
accounts, a standard mainstream school. And she was meant to start that in September 2020.
Hmm.
But because of everything that was going on, she'd
Yeah.
literally turned 5 in the August, so the month before. So she
Yeah.
seemed tiny. And also with everything going on and kids being put in bubbles on the playgrounds and colouring in masks. And I
No.
was just like, that is not okay. I'm not normalizing that for her. Um, I kept her back with the intention of putting her in maybe the next year.
Yeah.
But never did, because I made some friends who were home ed, and that's the key, I think, for anyone who wants to
Yeah.
do this home ed life. Like, find your tribe, and it will take a bit of trial and error.
Yeah.
But I was very lucky that first of all everyone was homeschooling because of the situation.
Yeah.
Although in a very, and I think this is, you maybe talk about this, but people get a preconception about what homeschool is from that situation. They think that they're going to have to take the school curriculum
Yeah.
and manage their job and manage the house and manage everything else
Yeah.
and deliver this curriculum in a way that they've no idea how to deliver, because it's people are trained to do that, right?
Yeah.
That's not what it is at all, at
No, it's
all.
not.
And we have a very loose, very, very loose. We don't have a curriculum. I was going to say we have a very loose curriculum. We don't have a curriculum.
Yeah.
But what I do have is some family support.
Yeah.
I can have that. So whilst they're at home with me, um, pretty much every day, while I'm working, and I think that's actually a good thing. They get to see mommy working, setting up the
Yeah.
podcast equipment, having Zoom calls,
Yeah.
on the phone. I think all of this, they are taking it all in.
Oh
Um,
God, yeah.
they know how
Especially
to
at that age,
avoid it.
everything's learning. I mean, everything,
Yeah,
every experience they have, they're learning something. And I
yeah,
think this is the other thing that people don't understand. You don't have to put them into a school to teach them to learn. They know how to learn.
yeah,
Right?
yeah. Yeah, 100%. I mean, yesterday we were just talking before we came onto this about why we're a few minutes late because I'm managing a grief situation in the house and I'm smiling because I'm kind of trying to make light of it. We rescued a mouse from the jaws literally of the cat yesterday. And they then befriended the mouse and set up a habitat. But even that needed learning, right? They needed to learn, well, what habitat do mice like? What food
Yeah,
do they like? What's poisonous to them? How can you train a wild mouse? So there's all this opportunistic, albeit, but it's
yeah,
and I think my journey has been, I've started off like they need to have a curriculum. Then it was like, okay, maybe they don't, because I was seeing a lot of other parents that weren't following a curriculum, the kids were still bright, and I think that's where the mixing of different ages is perfect,
yes,
and you being exposed to different families, and maybe even go, I mean, if you go to any park meetups, this has been my experience, you'll
yeah,
generally find one or two teachers in a group of maybe 8 or 10
yeah,
ex-teachers who are like, I've seen the inside of that system and I'm not putting my kids in it.
yeah,
That's certainly what I've found. I don't know if that's just a fluke in Birmingham, but yeah, and I had to kind of wean myself off this paradigm of what I thought education needed to look like.
yeah,
Again, my specialism is self-love, helping women to really cultivate deep self-love. And yeah, I was struggling with imposter syndrome of I'm not doing enough.
hmm,
I'm not nurturing them enough. I'm not giving them enough structure. I'm not doing enough with them. And that's always the thing with lack of
yeah,
self-love, enough.
yeah,
So there's no greater mirror in my journey than this home ed journey. Like then that wound of enough.
yeah,
Great, it's great. I'm like leaning into it now. It's like, well, okay, is it telling me that this week, because maybe some activities have changed, I need to lean into them and find out, we need to talk about it.
yeah,
It's clues now more so than like, oh, it's a story of, yeah, I'm not doing enough and I need to outsource this.
yeah, yeah.
So
No, and I mean, it is interesting as well, isn't it? Because we sort of went through a similar thing. Because my little boy's my oldest. Well, he's the middle son. I've got an older daughter who's 20 years old now, and she's been through the school system, so I've seen that side of it. But he did two terms at school when COVID hit, so he'd be like in the year above your daughter. He's
mm,
just coming up for 9 in July, and he didn't go back. He went back for a few weeks, but we were just like, no, not happy with this, and he never went back. And it was a similar sort of journey. It's like the school was sending the work home. We were looking at it, and then for like the first few days we tried to do it, and it was just impossible because he didn't want to sit still. He didn't, yeah, which and it gave us this sudden little insight into, oh my god, so if he's like this here, he's going to be like this at school. He doesn't really want to do this stuff, and he's
yeah,
4. He was young in his year like your daughter is, and it was like a real light bulb moment. And I mean, they largely didn't go back again because the things you're talking about the bubbles and masking and all that sort of stuff that we didn't want for him. And my wife's a speech therapist as well and psycholinguist, and she's like, these masks are doing so much developmental damage.
yeah,
So she's like, he's not going back. If they're going to mask, he's not going back. And we've been on that similar journey. And there's like some people who follow online, like Sarah Beale,
mm,
who she followed her sort of talking about unschooling. At first, I thought she was absolutely batshit crazy when I saw,
too. I
and
said, no,
now
just
we
say
do
her
most of
kids are
what she
going to
does.
be wreckages.
Yeah, but
The judgment.
yeah, I know. And now it's like, well, for us, pretty much us.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it is, but you have to let go of so much to
absolutely.
get there.
Yeah,
Because we're all conditioned. I presume you went to school. I went to school. All through the school system, and that's what we're conditioned into. And the thinking is normal, and it isn't.
yeah. I know, and that thing of, he was 4 and he'd have gone and sat at a desk and been told to sit still and had to put his hand up for the toilet and all these other things that as an adult we're like, oh, that's not really being true to your energy, to your body. You're not in
Yeah,
tune, you're doing things according to the outside world, not your body. Um, but that's the norm, and like it's just made to be like, well, no, kids need that. They need to be, it's like there's almost a world mentality of kids need to be broken. They don't use those words, but it's like their spirit needs to be broken. They need to
yeah,
be know who's boss. They
absolutely.
need to know authority and be able to follow instructions. And that's just what the schooling system is. And again, if your kids are in school, this is not a judgment on you. I
No,
know some
not.
parents, they practically can't make it work. And I feel like things just aligned for us. And it was through, I think, setting intention, like, right, okay, as soon as I realized, oh no, this employment situation is not working for me, let's start this network marketing business. I think I started the wheels in motion years before that situation almost unfolded or manifested, if you believe in that.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's so interesting. But I think the surrender part is the biggest challenge for sure. And it's only been through, like you mentioned Sarah Beale, and she would say things like, I don't enforce a bedtime. I let my kids to stay up. They'll tune to their bodies. And I'm an embodiment coach pretty much now. It's what
Yeah.
I specialize in. And so that is like, oh, that is very true. We need to allow our children to regulate themselves and know, oh, I went to bed at 2 a.m. and now today I feel terrible. I'm not going to do that again. That's an internal motivation that they are then learning, right?
Yeah.
Still struggle with that because I've then got to deal with the behavior the next day.
Yeah.
So but I'm leaning more into her philosophies of like child-led learning, child-led living and lifestyle. And it's only been through, so I'll just share a story with you. I was actually still clinging on to what I thought needed to be the case. So Harper would have been, she's now 7, she would have been 5. So sitting down, right, she'd be at school now. We need to start to read. This was my mindset.
Yeah.
People are going to start seeing if she can read, and people will always do this, by the way, and they do it with my kids still, and even close family sit my now 6-year-old down and go, can you read this and do your times tables? And it's like they're getting a smug satisfaction of when they can't do things because they're right, because they should be in school.
Yeah.
uh, when actually, let's just get ourselves back into our heart. What's best for the child? Are you
Yeah.
making them feel good right now, or are you just getting an ego boost?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my own bug to bear. But I was like, you need to be able to read. And I could see that she was sort of trying a little bit here and there. So it was like, right, we're going to sit down and we're going to do Reading Eggs. So Reading Eggs is a great app, by the way. I really recommend it because it's quite child friendly and,
Yeah.
animated, and it makes it fun. It's got little games in there. But the kids are only interested in it when they're interested in it, right? And I was
Yeah.
like forcing it for a while, and it just became stressful for both of us. And then I just backed off and I listened to my other home ed friends who were like, listen, she'll read in her own time. She's only 5. They don't learn to read
Yeah.
and do all these things until they're 7 in Europe. And I was like, okay, it hurt inside to like let go. It
Yeah.
did. It's like, oh, this is, yeah. It does. But I did. And then not long after that, I mean, I always remember it as a couple of weeks, but it might have been a couple of months. It just seemed like a very quick time frame. I came down one day and she'd written a name on a whiteboard we've got downstairs. And from there, it was like nurturing that. Okay, now can you spell this? And now can you spell that? And
Yeah.
make it fun. And then we started to really go into the Reading Eggs. And it was, just doing a little bit every day when she wanted to.
Yeah.
You now can pick up any book and read it. And that's, but then flip side, for anyone who has got a 7-year-old that can't read, or is not always just not feeling it, my
Yeah.
6-year-old is just not interested in reading.
Yeah.
She's very creative. She does aerial hoops, she does gymnastics, she loves to dance, you
Yeah.
know to make things with her hands, but she's not interested in reading.
Yeah.
And so I have to flex with both of them.
But yeah, but it is. I mean, you're right. It's all about their motivation, their intrinsic motivation. I mean, my little boy, he just lazy, to be honest. He couldn't be bothered to read, and then he got into Minecraft. So I bought him some Minecraft books, and no, I'm not reading these to you. If you want to see what's in them, you go and read them.
Yeah,
And he did, and it made him. He picked them up, and he's reading, and he reads really fluently now. And he's taught himself basically through Minecraft books.
yeah,
But you're also right. I mean, my wife's Russian, and she was horrified that he went to school at 4 because they start at like sort of 6 to 7 years old in Russia, and she's like, "What? What is going on? Why is he expected to go to school at this age? He shouldn't be in school." And yeah, so it is looking at all this stuff and just remembering that they are programmed to learn, they will pick it up.
yeah,
I mean, I read sort of like you go to different home ed groups, and it's like my 10-year-old can't read, and then all of a sudden they just at that age they just get it, and it takes a matter of like weeks even before they go from not reading to reading fluently.
yeah.
And it's all about your child, and they're all unique.
Mm,
They all have their own little foibles and their own stuff that they like and don't like. And you're absolutely right. There's no point forcing things on them.
no.
They all if they enjoy it, they'll do it, and
Yeah.
that's it.
Well, my eldest, she's very. I mean, they're both very strong-willed, and I actually want to maintain that. I want to raise
Absolutely. Yeah.
strong-willed, powerful women. It's hard sometimes to parent them. Uh,
I've got one of those.
oh my goodness, it's tough. But she started to say things like, I don't like learning, stop forcing me to learn, and that was when
Yeah,
I knew that, oh, okay, I want you to know that you have a passion for learning. So I'm doing something
yeah,
wrong here. I need to step back. So that was my indicator.
yeah. No, I've got one of those as well, and she doesn't want to do something. You can't make her, and we don't want to either, But she's just absolutely stands in her own power. No, and we know with her, it's final. That is it. That's the last word. And so, and again, it makes you sit back and take a good look inside, doesn't it? Why
Yeah.
do I want to, sort of force this child or manipulate this child into doing something? She can't be manipulated
Yeah.
at all, which is amazing.
Yeah, exactly. We need more people like that in the world that are willing to take a stand against things that they don't agree with.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me a bit more about your business because obviously this is something you've built up over the last few years, and you said you're sort of a self-love guide or alchemist, wasn't it? You said. So what does that involve, and who are you helping, and what are you helping them with?
So I specialize in nervous system and subconscious mind healing because I recognize through the course of my marriage and delving into my own shadows, if you like. And I did very much at first come from it from let's clear all of the density because I could
Yeah,
recognize that I was living in anxiety, I was living in depression, I was living in fear and lack and scarcity. So it was very much like the shadow work as a starting point. But now leaning more into like pleasure and laughter and joy and cultivating that through the nervous system and through different practices. So I help women through group programs, and I've got two at the moment. So I've got soon to be a third one that really leans into that joy and pleasure cultivation. But I've got a relationship rewire program, which is a 6-month program, and that is 35, 40 hours of trainings, healings, meditations, all of the subconscious mind work, reconnecting back to the inner child, healing relational trauma
yeah,
that leads us to attract emotionally unavailable partners, that leads us to, create these push-pull dynamics in our relationships,
hmm
and that ultimately attracts narcissistic characters because when we are not self-sourcing, when we're seeking validation outside of ourselves, we become a magnet for
yeah,
toxic people ultimately. So that's one of the programs. Another one that's shorter, sweeter, that's a more focused around self-care, self-love, self-talk, and repatterning some of that so that we can really step into our love essence, step into our confidence and step into our higher selves. I'm quite woo-woo and I do a lot of spiritual practices. So really cultivating that higher self version of like, really without all the programs, without all the fears and the negative head chat, who did you come here to be and what is it that you would be doing if you could just step into that? That's
yeah,
a short 9-week program that starts on the 30th of May. It's called Self-Love Unleashed. And then I actually have a masterclass. It's really low ticket if anybody's interested. It's £11. It's a 3 hours over 3 days masterclass series next week. So that's week commencing the 13th of May, and replays are available. And I'll just be taking you through some really powerful practices that will really help you to be regulated in your nervous system so that you're not operating out of anxiety and lack and scarcity. And actually, the more important thing, I think, for this group is you can connect when you're regulated. You can, if your child's having a tantrum, you have the tools and practices to regulate and not react with a trigger, but actually to connect and to deepen that bond rather than sabotage it. So that's just one of the benefits of some of that embodiment work and nervous system work. But we'll also do, work to reprogram the self-talk
yeah,
and yeah, to increase confidence and that feeling of self-love, that feeling of I am worthy and I can do anything. So if it's, pursuing home education, if it's pursuing a business opportunity, when we cultivate that self-love and self-worth, really is what it is.
yeah,
Self-love is like the banner that encapsulates the bubble baths and all the fancy fluffy things. So actually what we're really talking about is clearing any programs, and any shame is a really typical one. If we've kind of been experienced abandonment or loss, it's been perceived as abandonment, or not feeling good enough as a child for whatever reason, maybe bullying or whatever, um, that gets internalized as shame, which then, loads of other emotions then stack up on top of it, loads of other belief systems of, I deserve to suffer, or, I can't step into my power. And a lot of these, again, they're subconscious, right? They're
yeah,
not consciously think, but we just know through what we're attracting in our lives, through maybe obstacles or people or situations that make us feel out of our power.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so that's what I do. And I've also got a podcast launching called Love Rewired, which I'm really excited about,
Fantastic.
which will be, because I'm very spiritual, but I also bring in the science of vagus nerve exercises, the polyvagal theory,
Yeah.
attachment theory, and also the relationship and lifestyle coaching. It's really where love, self-love, relationships, spiritual evolution converge. So I've already had some epic guests on, and it's just me sorting my tech out, which is like when people go into business, can we just talk about how much tech is involved? Outsource everything that you can that doesn't feel aligned. But once I get all of that sorted, we will be live. Yeah.
Fantastic. Are we allowed to get a preview of who the guests are, or is that something
Oh,
in wraps until?
yeah, I can share that. So there's one that might particularly resonate called Amanda McKay, and she's a New Zealand mind body coach. She is a really good expert in nervous system, but from a perspective of cultivating inner calm
Yeah.
and honing your nervous system so that you can bond with your children on a deeper level. So she's all about breaking the patterns that came before you in how you connect with your children and cultivating long, strong, lasting relationships. Another one, this just shows the diversity of the podcast, but another one is Stephanie McPhail. So she's a best-selling author and a coach who specializes in helping women break the pattern of toxic relationships, a bit similar to what I do.
Yeah.
Very, very well, very highly esteemed in my eyes. And she's brilliant. And we had a really great conversation only a few days ago, actually. Real practical tips on what you can do if you find yourself in that toxic relationship, whether it's romantic or otherwise. So yeah, that's one to look out for sure. Yeah.
Fantastic. Oh, that's lovely. Well, what we'll do, we'll put some links to the various bits and pieces. You probably haven't got the podcast links just yet, I'm thinking, but for the other courses that you mentioned, we'll stick those in below into your business so that anybody can find you that needs to. But thank you ever so much for coming in and chatting today, Kylie. It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, awesome. It's been a pleasure. I love this topic, love all of this and what you're doing in the Homeschool Freedom Club. So thank you so
Bye.
much. Great.
Thanks ever so much. Take care.
Awesome. Take care. Bye.
Bye bye.